So if it's over to me, Joss, I'm going to say my big question at this moment is, where is the celebratory cream cake and fizz? Because that's what we normally have at the end of a face-to-face conference that's been as good as this. So we should be celebrating. So you need to imagine at this point in time that you've got your cream cake in one hand, you've got your fizz in the other, and you're just having a great time now reflecting on what Joss has got it, what you've seen and heard. So thank you to all the presenters. I've been in room 2 all the time, so I can say a particular thank you to them for the richness and the variety of what's been presented today, and the very professional way in which people have presented. It's fantastic. I could see variety, I could see some common issues, but I am really pleased to see all this action research taking part in the FE context. And Debbie did refer to the MyFET report just now. So the Mathematics FE Colleges report, which I co-authored, one of the things in one of the interim reports that we identified was the need for teachers in FE to have the skills to research their own practice, to get those skills in using action research as part of their routine way of doing things in colleges. So how excited am I to see that in a very roundabout route, we're actually there now. It is happening. But I do say particularly, it's not just about getting the ideas and testing the ideas out. That is really important. It's one of the other things that came out of MyFET very early on was the differences between colleges. Colleges are not all the same. Your cohorts are not all the same. Your students in different vocational areas do not behave in all the same ways all the time. And so it is really important to, alongside bigger scale research, to have those contextualized pieces of research that show and test out how it works in your situation, which might even be the same as the person in the next college down the road. But I am really pleased, and I do focus on this area of developing skills in action research, because this is about examining your own practice. This is about inquiry. This is about self-development and team development. And where else are we going to go? It's a really important part of what we do in our teaching. So I'm going to quickly just mention a few things about skills that came out of the presentations that I've seen. So there were great presentations. You found some really interesting things. But just going back to the beginning, Greater Brighton Metropolitan College, Naomi gave us a really interesting presentation where she was trying to tackle a problem, but she was honest about what didn't work as well as what did work. And that's really important. That skill of being able to be self-critical and not just present the good impression, but actually be really honest about what went wrong and what didn't work. And I was particularly interested that she found out that giving people training without linking it to classroom practice didn't work. Those of us who read something about this in wider literature have seen that story before. So Leicester, Michelle looked at data, but they looked at data in different ways. And that was important to me, that rather than just looking at summary data, they tried to look at vocational areas and different levels or grades of students. And again, that's important to sort of really interrogate your data and think, well, certainly if you've got enough of it, if you've got small numbers, it's hard to do that. You won't get anything very reliable. But to try and interrogate your data and think of it in different ways, not just do the obvious. Tameside, we had this work about the mindset, as well as the mastery influence in that. But the thing about this to me was, this is mindset in a specific situation, a bit like Debbie's presentation as well. This is about taking something that people have researched in another context and put it into the FE context. I think this is a really important area, because we know that students in FE, they might have felt failures for a long time and not been good at maths, but when they've got that GCSE, that seals it, that seals the letter on the back that gets sent to the FE college that says, failure in maths, that makes a difference to students. And so it's interesting to see how things about growth mindset can be used for students who are facing that exacerbated problem of it being signed and sealed that they are a failure. We went on to Harlow, area that I've been interested in, done a bit of work on in the past, not as anything like as much as other people, but I was really interested here about what the technology does and what it enables beyond what you would normally do in a classroom. So the idea of the instant feedback and how effective that was to me very interesting. When you've got 30 students in front of you, giving instant feedback to all of them is quite difficult, but there is something here that is useful that's beyond what you might be able to do as a teacher. And that to me is what we should be looking for in our research. What can we do beyond? Shabana from East Kent gave us a really comprehensive account of what they've done, and quite a wide study that noticed differences between colleges again, interrogating the data, cutting it down, slicing it different ways. But interesting that point to me was she mentioned having lots of data and how hard it was then to analyze it. How do you integrate lots of bits of data? Part of it is to do with good design in the first place and good thinking about what you do with it then and how you can represent it well. Leicester, again, John and Prakash were talking about their work that built on previous work. And I think this is really important, these iterative processes of we've done this, but we could go around again and we could improve. And it's easy to try something out and think, well, I found something useful out, or that didn't work, so we'll try something else. But sometimes it's that iterative improvement on something that looks promising that actually leads you to a much better situation. And it's this care in design. And thank you very much to Debbie, it's really hard to be at the end of the day. But it's always fascinating to hear from you, Debbie. And I love the way in which you were, again, looking to broaden what you've done. You've got something really valuable here. And I like the link to CPD for other people to begin to develop these approaches and do a wider action research project. It's good to start small and really nail it and feel, yeah, I've got something definite here that's not affected by lots and lots of other possible variables and things going on and noise around it. But it's really good then to start broadening it and building on that. So I can see lots of things to build on, which is great. Finally, I like to say, I really appreciate this strand being in the CFEM programme, because there are strands here that work together. And it is really important that we look at the big picture of the national trials. As some of you know, I'm now looking at the whole college approach, which is more about the systemic and process problems, the bigger organisational problems, and the people and culture problems on a big scale within a college and how complex and interconnected they are. And so these three strands in particular are really working together if we can make them work together, and that's what we should be aiming to do. All of these, we're promoting reflection, inquiry. These are really key elements of all of these things, and it's on the basis of those we'll be able to build some strong communities of practice and strong learning organisations. That thread goes through all of them. So it would be wrong as a ex-teacher not to give you a bit of a challenge. So to me, there's two challenges. The first one is read. We're so used to just having to act and having to do and to get on with it as fast as possible. We're under time pressure, but read, because it will save you some time going down blind alleys if you read what other people have done. It'll enrich your own action research because it'll enable you to focus. And secondly, examine. Just examine really carefully what you get in your findings the data that you have, and just continue in that process day by day of examining what you're doing. And that way, I think we're building for a better future. We've got lots of foundations laid now. We're on the journey.